Welcome back, guys, and thanks for checking out today's video. I know it's been a while since my last update, and all I can really say is life is complicated these days with all the COVID restrictions and whatnot, but I'm not here to talk about that stuff. I am here to do a quick update on the projects that I have on the go and on the shop, so why don't I just jump into that. Today I wanted to share with you the prep work that I have to do in order to be able to do the throttle body comparison test that I'm going to be doing next. And also bring you up to speed on my RSX project. So guys, I've been working away on the RSX. I haven't really touched anything of the all-wheel drive setup, but I will dedicate full episodes to any more of the all-wheel drive part of this project. But I thought I'd share the progress so far on the turbo setup, which I really need to take care of before I get much further on the all-wheel drive setup. So I've been working away at that, and I'm not sure if I've actually shared too much about the turbo setup on this car, but a quick rundown for anyone that's new or hasn't seen any of the past videos. This is a PLM Sidewinder turbo manifold. I'm running one of the infamous Boosted Boys GT3582 ball bearing eBay turbos. I've used these turbos a lot, and I've actually tuned a lot of cars with this turbo. They work really well, and they're super inexpensive, so I decided to use one on this build. For the intercooler, I went with a Treadstone vertical flow intercooler, which is what usually works best on, or at least this style of intercooler works best on RSXs and K-swaps and whatnot. This, I believe, is the 3-inch core version with 3-inch inlet and outlets, and I'll be making my own 3-inch charge piping. I've actually basically already finished it. It is all over here. I mocked it all up and welded it and bead rolled it all, so I'll be putting it back on the car very shortly. And also with this car, I kind of lucked out. If you'll notice this red bottle down here, this is part of the InGen cold air kit. It's the smaller version of the windshield washer reservoir if you have an InGen cold air system, because with InGen cold air system, it places the filter down here, and in order to keep the windshield washer fluid, you need a smaller reservoir. It was weird, when I got this car, it didn't have an InGen cold air intake, but it had this washer reservoir bottle. So that worked out well for me. I'm able to utilize this windshield washer reservoir bottle, which will allow me all the clearance that I need for the charge piping to run through this area and back into the engine bay. So that worked out pretty well. One other intricacy about turbocharging RSXs is the battery. Normally the battery would be right here, but if you're gonna run all your charge piping, you can't fit the battery there. So some guys will relocate it to the trunk. I've decided to relocate it to the front passenger side. And the way I've done this is I've utilized a K-tuned battery tray, which is part of, I believe, the 8th gen cold air intake system of theirs, and just basically mounted it to the frame here in the front of the RSX, and then I'm going to be using the K-tuned battery hold down kit to secure the battery and make a new power wire to connect to the original power wire and reconnect the ground on this side, and that should take care of everything. And the battery is in a good spot that is out of the way, it's not in the trunk, and yeah, I think it'll work out pretty good. One other thing you guys might have noticed about the RSX is the set of wheels. I've actually changed up the set of wheels on this car. I really liked the old Koenig Hypergrams that were on the car. They were 17x8, but the fitment just wasn't aggressive enough for me, and it didn't really do it justice. So I've picked up this set of wheels, and they are Advan RZ wheels. The fitment is 17x9 in the front, plus 35, I believe, and 17x8.5 in the rear, plus 31. If I've messed that up, I'll put it in the description. And the tires that are on these are 255 in the front and 225 in the rear. So I want to take this car lapping, and I want a lot of tire up front, just to help with traction and whatnot. I may change up the tire size and may actually go with a wider tire in the rear, just because it is all-wheel drive, and it potentially doesn't really need to be as staggered as this much. It's just these are the tires that came with this set of wheels, and they are Pirelli Trofeos, so they are used. I'm going to test them out, but I will most likely replace them with a brand new set of something else. But for now, this is what's on the car, and I think they look super cool. and can't wait to test them out. So anyways, that's a quick update on the RSX, but today is all about the 8th gen Civic and prepping it for the throttle body comparison test. So why don't we jump over there and I will dive into that. So guys, it's finally time for me to do the throttle body comparison test with this car, and I'm super excited. I think it's gonna make for a really cool video no matter what the results are. But in order to do that, I have to do a bunch of prep work, and I've actually already done a little bit of the prep work, but I have to do more prep work because up until this point, the car is still using its original RBC intake manifold with its original throttle body. And in order to do this test properly and see the full benefits of any larger throttle body, what needs to be done is the intake manifold that we're going to be putting the throttle body on needs to be port matched to the largest throttle body that I have. So on the table here, I have a 72 millimeter K-tuned throttle body, I have a ZDX throttle body, I have a J35 throttle body, and I have a stock Civic SI throttle body. So the biggest throttle body that's here is the K-tuned throttle body at 72 millimeters. I believe the ZDX is close at almost 70 millimeters, and then I have the J35, which is I think 64.6 or call it 65 millimeters, and then the stock, which is like 60 or 62, can't remember exactly. But like I said, in order to see the full potential of any of these larger throttle bodies, we have to have a matching intake opening on the intake manifold. And what I've done is I've prepped one intake manifold and I have another one that's all stock. So what I ended up doing was I took the K-tuned 72 millimeter throttle body gasket and placed it on the intake manifold, traced it, and then ported it out so that the opening matches. And then what I have here is a stock intake manifold, and you can actually see how much smaller the original opening is compared to the new larger throttle body opening. So this is all prepped, and what I need to do today is install this intake manifold in preparation of doing this testing. And also I have a set of RDX injectors that I'm going to install because in the previous video when I did all the dyno testing of the intakes, the intake that made the most power nearly maxed out the stock injectors. So to give us enough room fuel injector wise, we're going to upgrade the injectors to RDX injectors. So the plan today is for me to pull off the original intake manifold and throttle body, install this new intake manifold, install this set of injectors, and get the car up and running. So why don't we get started doing that, and we'll see how it goes. All right, guys, so stock intake manifold and stock throttle body are off this car, and yeah, this engine bay is really in need of a detail, so let's not look too long at that. It's discouraging. But anyways, I have the original intake manifold over here. It is off. We are going to be replacing it with this cleaned up version that I've ported on the throttle body opening. What I should note is I've only ported the throttle body opening. I haven't ported any of the rest of the intake manifold. We're just trying to test if the throttle body size helps improve power, not if porting it will also make power. So like I said, it's only ported at the throttle body opening. So I'm going to install this intake manifold. At the same time, I'm going to install the K-tuned 72 millimeter throttle body. At the same time, I'm also going to install the RDX injectors and the K-tuned 3.5 inch cold air intake. So the plan is install all of these things, get the car up and running. I'm going to use the original tune that made 218 wheel horsepower, but I'm going to adjust it for the new RDX injectors because the injector size needs to be recalibrated in the tune and the injector dead times need to be recalibrated in the tune. Then once everything's bolted up, the new tune's loaded, I have to get the car up and running and bleed the cooling system again, because when you remove the intake manifold, there is a cooling passage right here. and it lets a bunch of coolant out. So I'm gonna have to top up the cooling system and bleed the cooling system. So why don't I get started taking care of all that stuff and see how it goes. All right, guys, so K-Tune throttle body is installed, and it is such a nice piece. It looks fantastic in this engine bay. It's so much nicer looking than the original one. It's such a nice piece to add to the engine bay. It just looks a lot nicer and much cleaner than the original stock throttle body. Also, I've installed the RDX injectors. The RDX injectors are a super straightforward swap in this application. It is basically a direct physical replacement of the original injectors. All you have to do is unbolt the rail, remove the stock injectors, put the new RDX injectors in their place, bolt the rail back down. You can even retain the retaining clips, and they are installed. That being said, there is a slight difference when you reconnect the, when you plug it back in. The connectors are slightly different between the black on the right injector, which is the original injector, and the blue, which is an RDX injector. The plugs are different, therefore we have to change the plugs on the wiring harness. And what I have here is the factory wiring harness. So what I'm gonna end up doing is cutting off the stock plug and wiring in a pigtail that is meant for an RDX injector. I have some ready to go here. These are pre-wired clips, and what I like to do is use these non-insulated butt connectors. So I have a whole bunch of them. I strip the wire, crimp on the non-insulated butt connector, and then cover it over with this adhesive-filled or glue-filled heat shrink. So when you heat it up, the inside melts all the glue, and a nice waterproof seal around this joint. I'm gonna go ahead and install all of these connectors onto the existing wiring harness and just keep working away. Okay, injectors all installed, all wired up, everything's connected. All the connections are butt connected and heat shrunk so that they're nice and watertight or weatherproof. And we are ready to do the final step, which is reinstall the K-Tune 3.5-inch cold air intake, and then it'll be time to start up the car. So why don't I install that? All right, guys, so with everything installed, the RDX injectors installed, the K-Tune 72mm drive-by-wire throttle body installed, and the K-Tune 3.5-inch cold air intake all back in, it is time to get the car up and running. In order to get the car up and running, I'm gonna have to jump in, load up the Flashpro Manager software, and adjust the tune that's on here for the RDX injectors. You simply can't install RDX injectors without letting the ECU know that you've installed different injectors. So I'm going to load up the original tune that's on this car and then just adjust it for the new size of injectors and also the injector dead times. Once I've done that, I'm also going to do what's called a throttle body relearn. Because we've changed out the throttle body, the ECU won't know how to idle the engine properly anymore. The ECU learns over time what settings and what opening in order to be able to idle the engine properly. So after I've uploaded the new map with the RDX injector settings, I'm then going to use my scan tool to do the throttle body relearn to reset the idle settings for the new throttle body. so that when I go to finally start up the car, it should idle properly and it will have the right fueling for the new injectors. So why don't I jump in the car, show you how to just quickly change a tune for the injector size, and then I'll show you how to do a throttle body relearn. All right, guys, so I'm in the car, and as I mentioned, I want to do two things, or I need to do two things to get this car up and running now that it has a bigger throttle body and different injectors. What I'm going to tackle first is the injector sizing and scaling within the Flashpro Manager. And afterwards, then I will also take care of the throttle body relearn. So first things first, the fuel injectors. I am going to download the original file or original tune that is on the ECU, and then I will show you how you go about just doing a quick update to the tune if you've changed your injectors, and then once that's done, we can proceed with the throttle body relearn to basically tell the ECU that there's a new throttle body on there and it can no longer use the learned values that it had before for the old throttle body. So first things first, key the car on so that and also have the Hondata Flashpro Manager software installed, the most recent version up and running on your laptop, all plugged in, OBD2 port connected, USB connected, and all of these check marks should be green. If everything is good, then we can proceed to online and download the original file. And then once it's downloaded, we can go into calibration and fuel, and this is where you find your fuel injector settings. So in previous versions of Hondata software for the S300 or the K-Pro, Hondata provided a drop-down window for the most popular fuel injectors to give you quick and easy changing for injector opening times. That's not available in the Flashpro Manager software, which is weird. I don't know why they did that, but it is what it is. So a quick and easy way to get the injector opening times would be just to get them off of the K-Pro Manager software. I always have that installed and it's always up to date. So if you want a quick and easy way to do this, you could download the K-Pro software and take the values from that. It is not a direct swap. You do have to do a little bit of math and changing of a few things, but I'll show you what to do. Or you can technically just write down what I do here and use that if you're doing something similar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the K Manager software, and I will have both programs up and running, and I will side by side them. I need to open something, so I might as well just open up like a stock, what do we got? Stock RSX, there we go. Stock RSX, and under parameters, we will go to fuel injectors, and I think, perfect, I'm actually already there. So fuel injectors, and switch the injectors to RDX. And then now these values here are the values that Hondata provided for RDX injectors. So I'm going to take those values and I'm going to throw them into the Flashpro software. In order to do that, you may notice that there are some slight differences. Voltage is different. They've provided different breakpoints for the voltage, so we would just need to make sure they match. And then in as for dead times, they are different measurements, MS versus US. So the big difference is just the decimal place, and it's super easy math to do. But first things first, we need to change the voltages. So first breakpoint is 6 volts, which is fine, that matches. Second breakpoint is 8 volts, that matches, that's okay. Third breakpoint is 10 volts, that's okay. The difference is the fourth breakpoint, which is 12 on Flashpro versus 14 on K-Pro. So we just change this value to 14 volts and we are set. So now, and then both are 16 for the last breakpoint. So with the voltage breakpoints matching, we can go in and just change the dead times themselves. The difference on the dead times is just the decimal place. Basically move this decimal place 3 points. So the 0.67 becomes a 670. and then the 0.87 becomes a 870, and the 1.43 becomes a 1430. The 207 becomes a 2070, and then the 296 becomes a 2960. I'll see how that turns out. I may put that on the screen for you guys to see, but those are the values you can use. Quick and easy to get. You don't have to do any crazy internet searching. And I've used this countless times. I'm sure there'll be someone that argues and doesn't agree with this, but this works and it works well. So with that done, we can close the K-Pro software now. Don't need it. And we just have one last thing to do: change the current injector size to 410. And that's all we technically need to do to get up and running with the RDX injectors with the Flashpro software. So I will upload this file now. I'll probably save it as the new starting point for the throttle body comparison test. I will upload this. I won't bore you with that because the upload process takes a while. Once that's done, I have to unplug the Flashpro cable from the OBD2 port, and then I will plug in my Autel. This Autel device, the AP200, is a cool little device. It is super inexpensive and allows you to do throttle body relearns. So let me get this all sorted out, and then we'll do the throttle body relearn. All right, so to do the throttle body relearn, which is usually a good idea whenever you're changing a throttle body, because a lot of times it'll take a long time to reset the learned throttle body values, and that can cause a lot of erratic idle and just problems. So it is a good idea to reset the learned values within the ECU by doing a throttle body relearn with some sort of scan tool. You can use any shop scan tool. I just happen to have this Autel device. So in order to do it with this Autel device, it's super simple. I plug it in to the same OBD2 port that you would use with the Flashpro. As soon as you plug it in, my phone actually has detected that it is there. I can allow it and it'll log in. So I need to log in. I have my password. So I basically just have to put my password in. Let me take care of that, and then we will be up and running. Once you're up and running, I should key on the car. And in order to do this, you basically just go to service, to the bottom, and we go to throttle section, and we can go to Honda because I've already set this up for Hondas. I use this all the time for Hondas. Once you've selected throttle, it takes you to the car selection. I'm going to do automatic selection and read, and it should read the VIN and all the information that it needs for the vehicle. And then once it does, you can hit OK. And I'm in Canada, and that's all the info for the vehicle. We're going to start communicating. Once it's connected to the car properly with the proper vehicle information, I can go into hot functions, and this takes a while usually, so I may speed this up. But basically these hot functions allow you to do stuff like the throttle body relearn. So we'll let it do its thing. Okay, so it takes about like 30 seconds or so. Once we're actually in the hot functions section, TP check is the throttle body position check. So we're gonna reset these values, hit OK, hit yes, hit OK, and all done. The throttle position values have been reset. It gives you a few instructions on how to make sure that the relearn process goes smoothly, but it should just work. So we should be able to just key on and start up the car, and let's see how it idles now with the new throttle position settings. And yeah, right away it's basically 1500, and it'll probably get better as it relearns the values through the throttle position sensor. So this was not, I'm gonna shut this off. This was not a dramatic example of throttle body relearns. I've had some cases where if you don't do the throttle body relearn, the RPMs can shoot up to 3000 RPM on startup. It happens a lot on 9th gen cars. 8th gen cars aren't as big a problem, but 9th gen cars, I almost always have to do a throttle body relearn whenever the throttle body's been changed. So I think that's about it for resetting the injectors and doing the throttle body and getting everything prepped and ready for the throttle body comparison test. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it up to this point. I hope to have the next video out soon, and that will be going through all the different throttle bodies. Why don't I get out of the car and I'm gonna discuss a little bit more about that. All right, everyone, so I think that's almost it for this video. Everything is ready to go for the throttle body comparison test video, and I hope to have that out in a few days. But before I let you go, I was gonna share with you my thoughts on how I'm gonna go about doing this throttle body comparison test video. The reason why I've already installed the biggest throttle body that I have for the testing is my plan is to tune the car with this throttle body, because theoretically this is the biggest one. It should make the most amount of power, and tune it so that it creates a new benchmark. This should set the highest amount of power possible for all the throttle bodies. So I'm gonna tune it, we're gonna see how much it makes, and it's gonna be the new benchmark of what this engine puts out. Because I'm not gonna use any of the previous dyno graphs, because they were different days and different mods and different injectors and everything. So whatever this ends up putting out with this configuration is gonna be its new benchmark. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start swapping in the smaller throttle bodies. And the reason for this is with that new benchmark, it should be the highest point. And if I go in and swap in a smaller throttle body, it should make less power, and it will be a good indication that how much that smaller throttle body is restricting power by comparison to the bigger ones. So we'll swap in the smaller ones and keep going and see how much power you lose at each step of the way. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you guys looking forward to that. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you like my videos and you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, do me a favor, hit the like button, and I will continue to create this content for you guys. So stay tuned. I should have the next video out in a couple days of the actual throttle body comparison testing with the final results. I'm eager to see what they are. I hope you guys are too. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you again soon. Bye now.